So, what does a $20 manicure in a mall has in common with napalm strikes in Vietnamese jungle? And what do both of them have to do with the very famous golfer Tiger Woods? On the surface, nothing. But in Ocean Vuong's On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, they're not just random facts. They are remnants of a war. Now, those of you who have read the book, you might know the apparent symbolisms in the book very well. The monarch butterfly symbolizing migrants and how it takes 3 generations of monarch butterflies to finish one cycle of migration, much like Grandma Lan and Little Dog. Instead of monarch, I will talk about more subtler symbolisms in the book. For those who haven't read it, On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous is a letter of a boy to his mother. Boy named Little Dog, mother named Rose. And he writes it in English, but Rose can't read English. Essentially, it is a letter that can never be read by the person whom it is addressed to. And that is why it is very intimate. So intimate, in fact, that there are points when you feel like infringing on something when you're reading it. It's almost like you were not supposed to know it. That was the introduction. Now coming to Vietnam War's connection with the nail salons and Tiger Woods. Woods' father, who retired as a lieutenant colonel in the US Army, served as military advisor during the Vietnam War. And during his time in Vietnam, he befriended a South Vietnamese military officer, Lieutenant Colonel Vuong Dang Pong, aka Tiger. Later, to honor his friend, Earl Woods named his son Tiger. Now, in the book, Vuong mentions the Vietnamese belief behind naming the kid and how they name the kids as the most useless thing that they can think of so that when the evil spirits come looking for something valuable, they don't touch the child. Think about the names. Earl Woods named his son Tiger as a beacon, a flare sent into the sky hoping that his friend, Colonel Pong, would see it someday. It was a name meant for the headlines. But Lan names her grandkid as Little Dog because in her world, headlines get you killed. In Vietnam, you name a child as something useless so that the demons pass over them. To be Tiger is a luxury of the victors, and to be Little Dog is a strategy of the survivors. Lan names her grandkid as Little Dog because she wants him to be safe and invisible and not get the evil spirit's attention. This aspiration to be seen on Woods' part, in contrast to not be seen by Lan for her grandkid, is sad. If taken out from the cultural context of Vietnam and placed in the context of being an immigrant in the US, not seeking attention or not being seen essentially means to blend in and to be not seen as an alien and to not seek attention of the demons of xenophobia or racism. These 2 instances of Namankran, so to say, in the book, and the stark difference between them is very potent. It makes you think. Even that Ocean Vuong was given his name by his mother when she learned what the word meant. So I'm assuming that names are very valuable for Vuong, and given that assumption, if you place Tiger next to Little Dog, it speaks a ton. Now, the connection between Vietnam War and nail salons in the US. Vuong touches upon it through Rose's character. In 1975, after the fall of Saigon, as the Western world calls it, and the reunification or the Liberation Day, as the current Vietnamese government calls it, many officers from the South Vietnamese army fled to take refuge in the US. Tippi Hedren, a Hollywood actress who was working as the international relief coordinator in a non-profit called Food for the Hungry, was volunteering in the Hope Village, which was in Sacramento in California, which was a refugee camp, assisting Vietnamese women who had recently arrived in the US. The idea was to let these women learn some vocational skill like typing or sewing so that they could find a job for themselves. But these women were really captivated by Tippi Hedren's beautifully manicured nails, and this gave her an idea. She called her manicurist, who taught a group of 20 women her skills, and then Hedren helped them to get the certification for these skills, and that's how it started. These women, mostly wives of the South Vietnamese military officers, had nothing left after the war, and so they got into this profession. They were offering same services in cheaper rates, and that's how manicure became accessible for middle-class women in the US. Even today, Vietnamese women dominate the nail business. They own almost 50% of the salons and comprise the majority of the workforce. Vuong compares the slow violence of chemical fumes that these women inhale during their work in the salons with the notorious Agent Orange, a herbicide containing dioxide which was used to stripe the Vietnamese landscape from its cover during the war. It remained in the soil and the blood of people, causing cancers and birth defects for generations. Grandma Lan and Paul were the direct victims of it, and their body remained a site of war much after the war was over. And many Vietnamese women still continue to expose themselves to these chemical fumes in the salons. But I think the end that Grandma Lan and Paul met is also symbolic. Paul suffered from prostate cancer. He makes a recovery and he survives, while Grandma Lan is diagnosed with 4th stage bone cancer, which eventually leads to her death. I think this difference highlights the unequal capacity of healing between American veteran Paul and Vietnamese refugee Lan. Paul's recovery mirrors the American ability to move past the war, survive it, and essentially heal from it in a way that a Vietnamese character cannot. Even the location of cancer, Paul's can be surgically removed, while Lan's is structural in the very bone. The book carries a lot of heavy themes: war, violence, PTSD, childhood trauma, a coming out story, substance abuse, death because of substance abuse, cancer, and the experience of living as an immigrant in a different country. But even with all these heavy themes, Vuong brings them to us very beautifully in the book. His style is very poetic, which is a given since he is a poet. He writes the story in a way that you see the tragedy and your heart bleeds, but you also have this awareness of having come across a thing of beauty. The realization that every life and even tragedy is gorgeous, even if briefly. I will be talking about Nausea by Jean-Paul Sartre in the next video. See you next time.